Hi everybody. Hi everybody. Hi everybody.
Hello.
Hi everybody. Hi everybody.
Hello. Alrighty. Hello, YouTube world. My name is Nicholas Montes, and you're watching my YouTube channel, The Teenage Movie Critic. And welcome back to my YouTube channel, everybody. And yes, I know it's March 8th. We're way past the release date of it, but this past week, the first two episodes of the new Marvel Cinematic Universe series on Disney Plus came out. Daredevil, Born Again. Now, this has been a series that a lot of us have been excited for. Some of us because we love the Netflix show. A lot of us have been nervous for it because of the behind the scenes stuff. And is Disney really going to go that far and make it just as good and violent and serious and tone deaf like the original show was? And what's it really going to be like? Are they actually going to do good writing? Are they actually going to handle the characters really well? And are they going to be able to make a good show out of this? And I think before we get into my thoughts, it's very well known that we should get into what were my thoughts going into this? Because everybody has their own experience, but what were my thoughts going into it? Let me just uh all right, so to give you my thoughts going into this show before watching the first two episodes, my thoughts were I was actually very excited for this show. This was probably my most anticipated MCU project of this year, mainly because it's because I loved the Daredevil show from Netflix. My experience with Daredevil is that uh my first thought of him when I heard about him was, so he's this guy in a devil costume that carries a bunch of nunchucks with him. But one thing I didn't know about him before when I was younger was that he was a blind superhero. So that was interesting. And then we saw Matt Murdock in Spider-Man No Way Home being Peter Parker's lawyer. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then we saw Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin in Hawkeye. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then we saw Charlie Cox come back as Daredevil in the She-Hulk series. Then we saw him again in the Echo show. Excuse me. Excuse me. Apologies, my people. Um, my thoughts before going into the show, we saw him in Echo, in Daredevil. We saw Daredevil in Echo, and then we recently just saw him in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. And just all the appearances of Daredevil and some of these characters, it's been kind of interesting. To where I did a video about 2 years ago on my top 5 favorite Marvel heroes, and Daredevil was actually in there because I just like that character so much. And then remember watching the first season of Daredevil in 2023, and then I watched half of season 2, and then I just kind of stopped, which I don't know why, but I probably shouldn't. And then I just finished the full series this past December, and it's been a great series. So basically, I love the series, and now I'm connected with it, and I just think the way that whole series was built up, I was like, yeah, that is great. And honestly, it's like one of the best Marvel projects. Like, I love Spider-Man, I love the MCU and their films, but me personally, and of course I love Into the Spider-Verse, but me personally, if we're talking about like a live-action Marvel TV show, Daredevil is like the next best thing for me that I will always go back to and I always love, and I'll be there for anything that they can do. As for the other stuff, what they had planned for this show, was I a little nervous that they were going to not aim for the fences, like go like, bloody and gory? I don't know, just because they did Echo and Deadpool and Wolverine, but they went for it. They had blood and stuff, so I'm like, it's not really going to be the hardest thing for them not to go hard with Daredevil Born Again and make it gory and bloody. As for the stuff they had set up with bringing it back Punisher and Karen and Foggy and Bullseye and Kingpin, introducing the character of Muse and all this stuff, and a lot of that stuff had me excited, and I like that in a show you can include a lot of stuff. The only thing I was worried about was the show going to be as good as the writing? Because if you don't know, the writing process for this show when it was first announced, and also the fact that, this version of Daredevil is actually canon to the MCU makes it 10 times better. And the fact that it's actually connected. So I love that. But, the writing process of all of it, it was not the best for it, where it was, going to be comedic. They were going to kill Foggy and Karen off screen, and Daredevil doesn't even make it into the suit until, the fourth episode. And remember, when this show was announced, it was supposed to be, a 18-season episode. So, yeah, it was a little wonky, but they did something, and they finally made it work. So yeah, some of the backlash had me a little bit nervous, but then Vincent D'Onofrio and Charlie Cox saw all this, and they were like, we do not like this version. We want to do something way better. But how do we do it? And they found a way. And so now I'm ready to talk about my thoughts after seeing the first 2 episodes. So my general thoughts on this show after seeing the first 2 episodes. This is peak Marvel. This is peak Marvel. Now, I am not saying this as just, this is peak of the MCU, in which it is. It's definitely one of the best MCU projects that we have gotten since Endgame, right behind Guardians 3 and X-Men 97. I think those are really the top 3 best MCU projects since then. I think that what this series did so freaking well was that it was able to I think of all the projects with everything that they were able to do, this one, of all the MCU shows, this is easily my favorite of them so far. Yeah, it's better than Hawkeye, and I know probably some of you are tired of that take. Hawkeye is the best MCU show. until this came along. I'm just gonna say that. But truth be told, this series, like the way they continue the characters from the original show, they do it so well. At the same time, it does have a good story here. The writing seems really good, at least in these first two episodes. When it comes to the development of everything, it feels right. And so overall, it works really nicely. I wish I could talk the thing is, I was planning on like doing a whole review series when all 9 episodes have come out, but I kind of wanted to do it week by week and talk about my individual thoughts on each episode, because everybody seems to be doing that, and even though some people have seen the whole season, I thought I might just talk about episodes one by one. So let's talk about the first episode. That opening was powerful. To where basically you open up with this wide shot of New York. You're seeing these different shots in New York City, the familiar city of Hell's Kitchen. One note I want to make about this: a lot of shots when opening up this episode reminded me a lot of Follow That Bird. I know that seems a little weird because I haven't really talked about this much with anyone really. But the reason why I say that is because one of the biggest strengths of the movie Follow That Bird, which is one of the best Sesame Street films, is that it actually feels like a movie, like we're actually on a street. Yeah, it still feels like the show, but the street feels a little bit bigger. It feels like we're on an actual street, not on a TV set, and everything does that. And with this one, it's like we're seeing a sign, we're seeing these shadows, we're seeing all of this, and it just looks cool. And then there's even a shot on a rooftop, and we see someone fall, and people are over here. Like, it looks real, obviously, because it is. But that's one point I want to make out. And then we get our 3 trio: Matt, Karen, Foggy, all being happy. They're firm from the 3rd season. It's now here, and they seem happy. They're happy with their firm, and it seems to me like they're just going to hang out at Josie's on a Friday night. And this, to me, was the perfect way to open it, because you see them all happy and giddy as, they go to Josie's, the classic bar that they always go to, and you have Foggy going to, like, try to pick up someone on a date and flirt with this girl, because Matt is super hearing, he's hearing the conversation from all over there, and he's kind of hearing what they're saying, and them having fun and stuff, and be like, wait, Foggy's doing that? No. He's calling the firm MN&P. And Karen's like, no, Foggy. Like, just fun stuff, laughable stuff. And then you get this transition, which that's another positive I love about this show, is I love the way they do the transitional shots and showing the aspect ratio and the way it changes. I love all that stuff about that, and the way it's like showing his radar sense. And I love all that stuff to where, because when this is happening, something bad is about to happen. Something extremely bad is about to happen. And it turns out Foggy is getting a call from this guy named Benny. I don't know if that was a character from, like, the Daredevil show, but apparently I'm guessing Benny is, like, one of, like, the people that's in the firm that they're covering, one of their cases they're covering, and telling him that someone is at Benny's apartment, and someone's attacking him, and so obviously Matt suits up as Daredevil to go try and stop him and save this Benny guy. But Matt doesn't realize that while he is leaving his friends unsupervised, their friends are now out in the open and they're exposed. And that is when you get the quick shot when Foggy gets shot, and a couple of other people too, and it's none other than Poindexter Bullseye with his new suit, his new gadgets. And then we start leading into a one-shot fight, which I will actually say, One of my biggest issues of the series so far has been some of the action and the CGI. It's not as good as the original show, and I don't think it ever will be. But for the one take and the action that we do get, I thought it was pretty good. It's not the best, especially when it comes to the Daredevil CGI and him swinging around on his bully clubs, but I thought it was pretty good. And the usage of smoke, especially since he put a smoke bomb in the building and all that stuff, it was really cool. But I also love that while he's fighting Bullseye, you have him keep going back to Matt as he's hearing Foggy's heartbeat goes down slowly. And I love all this stuff where, like, Matt is, dodging all the knives he's getting thrown at and all this stuff. And then, while they're going up the stairs, he breaks one of the lights so that way Bullseye can come into his element. That was a really cool thing they did. And then, you just see these two people are getting tired. I thought that helped it, make it realistic besides all the weird CGI stuff, so I forgave it for them being tired. And then you see Bullseye getting punched a little bit, and then you go back to Foggy, and you see his heartbeat, the blood spilling out of Karen's hands as he's trying to stop the bleeding, and yeah, Foggy Nelson dies. And you see Matt's reaction, and he's grabbing Bullseye, and then he throws him off the roof. And when I saw that, I'm like, that's actually insane. He broke his rule. When I first heard, because obviously this series was in the trailers, it wasn't a spoiler, this is in the trailers, that this series is all about Matt Murdock giving up being Daredevil because he crossed a path. A line was crossed. My theory was he accidentally killed someone, but I never thought about that. Someone would have to die for him in order for him to cross the line. And in some ways, this is a lot better because you can't really accidentally kill someone unless it was an actual accident. So I thought that was truly spectacular in the way they did that. And then I was actually surprised because when he threw him off the roof, I was like, that's crazy. And then you just have Bullseye surviving. That one kind of pulled me out. But I'm interested to see what they're going to do with him in the rest of the series. And then you just get this scene with him crying on a rooftop. And you see one of the cops find out who he is. And he throws down the mask, just like in the trailers, which is an iconic shot. And then we get into our new intro. Thing. I think it was a really cool intro. I don't think it quite lives up to the original intro we got in the Daredevil show. But this one, I think, works really well. Especially after the first episode. It works so well to where it's just showing you Matt's world is broken. It's crumbling. The firm, it's gone. The city is no longer the same as it was. And you can now tell why this series is called Being Born Again. Not because Daredevil got canceled for 7 years, but because Matt Murdock is no longer Daredevil in this show until later. And so now we see 1 year later where Matt Murdock, he has a new firm. He's working with BB, who is Ben Urich's niece, which I thought that was a wonderful thing that they did in bringing Ben Urich's, a relative of Ben Urich in here. I'm like, that's cool. I like that. At first I thought it was her daughter. It was his daughter, but then I realized, wait, his wife was sick during that first season. Did they ever have kids? I don't know. I'm guessing not. And then we get to the court case of the trial with Poindexter and Matt Murdock. He's discussing stuff, and then he hears Karen coming. And we get to see him and Karen, and you can see that Matt and Karen's relationship hasn't really been the best since in the following year, and that Matt basically ignored her as he was in grieving and he was suffering, and then he wanted to go talk to her, and she wasn't doing that. And really, from this conversation and outside the courtroom, this just proves that they got it. They got it right here, and that they have mastered of what they can do with this show, with the dialogue between two characters being interesting, of two friends grieving, to where it was so interesting. You saw the first 20 minutes ago, you saw these two characters interacting, having fun, laughing, and now a year passes by and they can't even interact because they're so heartbroken with themselves and they can't do anything about it. And that's sad, to be honest with you. And so yeah, all that stuff with Matt in this first episode was great. However, that's not the only thing that we're doing. Poindexter isn't only going to prison, but also we got Wilson Fisk coming back to the mix as he comes back to greet Vanessa. And it turns out during the time when Kingpin was doing Hawkeye and Echo and stuff like that, Vanessa took over the business that Wilson was doing. And I think from this conversation with Vanessa, you can really just tell that, she's kind of done a lot, and she's gained a lot of, a little bit of stuff, and she's kind of changed, and, their relationship is not quite as romantical as it was in the first 3 seasons. So, I thought all the stuff with Wilson and Vanessa was actually kind of interesting. I'm interested to see where it's going to lead. But it turns out that Wilson Fisk is now running for mayor of New York, which was not a spoiler. It was a plot line that was teased in the trailers and also in the marketing. And pretty much all over social media, all I've been hearing is that it just feels like Trump. You could say that. It definitely most feels like Trump. But, what do I have to say about that? Considering that I also went to New York and I saw a little, not a riot, but a protest in Washington Square Park for that. Yeah, I can kind of understand it now. But hey, it was kind of cool to watch. It was cool. But honestly, if like I said, back to the Karen and Matt conversation, I think that's one of the things that this show has been able to do is make just two conversations in this show so intense. And honestly, my favorite conversation up to this point in time was the conversation of Matt and Kingpin talking in the diner, to where it's just two of these people catching up. It's like this two married couple just catching up, and it's intense. You see them kind of catching up. They're kind of laughing. They're kind of making jokes. They're kind of trying to find out about each other. And then you just see them give these hard lines where, Matt is like, I was raised to believe in grace. Basically saying, I was raised. Basically in this line, he's saying, I was raised to believe in grace. I was raised to believe in faith in people, and that there is good in everybody. But I know who you are, and if you if you say who you are now, then it'll be fine. But if you step out of line, I will come for you. And one of the new things that Kingpin wants to do with this new mayor rule is he wants to get rid of vigilantes. Daredevil, Punisher, Spider-Man. And basically he makes another threat to Matt that if he goes back to his other duties, there will be consequences. And that hit hard. Man, that hit hard. And that sets up of how it's going to be if he ever goes back to being Daredevil. And so, yeah, that was very interesting. So then we get that Mayor Fisk has won. He has won, and it's taken a toll on, it is now taking a toll on Matt, and the city is not the same. The other thing I like about this, with this whole plot line, is with the BB Urick reporting thing. I like that it shows different people's perspective on how all of this is going down. What are people's thoughts about Fisk getting elected and winning? All that stuff I thought was really cool and made New York like a character, which I thought was really well done. So that kind of wraps up the first episode, and then we get into the second episode, which I was so blown away by the first episode. I really did like the second episode. But I just thought the first one was better. But I like the way they continue the plot. I like that they're bringing in this character, Hector Ayala, who is the White Tiger. I don't really have too many thoughts about this, just because, it's a guy. He's trying to help. He was trying to help this guy escape, but it turns out these two guys attacking this guy were two corrupt police officers. And it's a cool setup for the show. You can understand why these cops are being rational, like very rational about this, because you can tell they're not exactly the best cops. They're not good cops right now. So it makes sense why they're being so rational about this, especially since you get that beatdown at the end. But like I said, I don't have too much thoughts about the Hector Ayala character. It's nice that he's a setup for White Tiger. I just don't have too many thoughts about the White Tiger character in general, because my interpretation of the White Tiger character was from Ultimate Spider-Man. I always knew her as the character as a girl in Ava Ayala, and she worked for S.H.I.E.L.D., and she was teaming up with Spider-Man and stuff like that. But this is her brother, Hector Ayala. And so, yeah, I don't have too many thoughts on, the White Tiger character in general. In my opinion, he's the street-level Black Panther. That's what I like to think about it. So, yeah, but this plot line, it's a good setup for what the show's going to carry forward, especially since Kingpin wants to get rid of vigilantes, and to introduce a new character through that was kind of cool. I hope we get to, and, the actor that plays Hector Ayala did pass away 2 years ago. Hopefully he filmed enough episodes to actually get ready for this show. I'm interested if we're actually going to see the White Tiger in the costume fighting bad guys, and hopefully it's actually cool and entertaining. But I think besides all of that, that's really cool. And then we get the final fight where Matt tracks down the suspect of the police officers, and he knows that those two cops are coming for him, so he finds a way and tries to help him to escape. And you can also tell, we know what's about to happen, that he's about to fight these two guys. But you also realize when they start beating him, why isn't he fighting back? You realize he hasn't fought anyone. He hasn't been doing that kind of stuff since Foggy. And because he's been keeping in that rage for about a year, he finally lets the rage out. He breaks the guy's arm. He smashes him on the table. He hits the guy over the refrigerator, and his eyes are and then he just body slams him and breaks his neck on the floor, and he gets that primal scream. Ah! Yes. I will say, while I think this fight is brutal and it's great, I'm not a big fan of the way that it's shot. I do wish it was a little bit more better and cool. It could be cool, but it could have been shot way better. But overall, that's kind of my thoughts on the first two episodes. Overall, I thought they were two great episodes, and one of the interesting things about this season is that, yeah, I'm really liking the first two episodes. I think they're great, but I know it's probably going to get better than here. Because I know that because we still have other things along the way. We have Punisher on the way. We somewhat introduced the Muse character, but not quite yet. So we still have a little bit of setup to do with this show still, but yeah, that's kind of my overall genuine thoughts on the show. I love the writing. I like the character interactions. Not character interactions, but I like the dialogue and the conversations just between people. And basically, I love the acting. And I like the story that they're setting up with this show. And I love what they're doing here. I guess now let's talk about some of my thoughts on this phase. Which, I'm not going to make a slide about that. I'll just leave it after here. My thoughts on this phase is kind of like, because, phase 4 had a lot of problems because while they produced a lot and some of these projects were pretty good, that's not really the best solution but at the same time, it's like, yeah, some of these projects were pretty good, but they probably could have been better if you give them more time. And if you were able to not just rush out all these things, if you actually gave them the time and day to actually go and do that. And then, but honestly, nothing in that phase was like peak MCU to me. Like No Way Home and Hawkeye were great, but they had a few issues. Phase 5 kind of was the example of like, if you're not this, like you either are terrible or you're a cash grab, or you can actually make a masterpiece out of this. Biggest examples of this in Phase 5 were Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, and Agatha. I think they're some of the worst projects in the MCU, mainly because they don't do anything interesting. They're just cash grabs, and I don't really understand why they were made. But then you get projects like Guardians 3 and X-Men 87, and I would argue, I know we're only 2 episodes in, but I would argue Daredevil Born Again makes it into that conversation of just overall great projects. Perfect projects, if you will. And this, to me, was just one of the greatest MCU things that I've ever seen. And I'm excited to announce that this will be one of the best MCU projects. Now, granted, we have a season 2 coming. I hope that the season improves. I hope that the action and the CGI gets better if they decide to include that in the second season. I just hope the show is good. I hope that the rest of the show is really great. And that's kind of my thoughts on the first 2 episodes. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I guess I'll see you guys on the flip side. Bye-bye. Yeah, I want to try out a new catch line. I don't know. Bye-bye.